Well, isn't this a fantastic day? The tent is here today not to shield us from the rains that have plagued us for so many months, but this day it's to shield us from the sun. I'm here today to welcome all of you on behalf of the Board of Trustees of Reed College, and to honor the new graduates who worked so hard for so long, for so many hours, days, months, and years to get here, and receive a simple 8.5 by 11, maybe even smaller document that represents all of this work and that will follow you for the rest of your days, because to be a graduate of Reed College, you will find as you go out into the far world, is a remarkable achievement and valued by many besides all of you who are here today. Now, the people who really value it the most, I think, are those folks where we stand in awe and amazement, because I'd like to honor all of those families, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, parents, anyone else who stood by all of these women and men during these years of toil, and through thick and thin, through rain and sleet and snow, and even sun on occasion today, to give so much of themselves, both financially and emotionally, so that you had the chance for great success. Finally, today, we are going to honor two giants. Now, by giants, I don't mean George Mikan or Mr. Jordan or Magic Johnson. I'm talking about two men who were not alumni of this institution, but joined it at a really difficult period of time where Reed was at the abyss, namely the very early 1960s. These two men who adopted this institution more than 45 years ago, and whose efforts ensured not only its survival, but provided the real foundations for its success, and whose examples illuminated a path where I have followed. In any event, this is a time for joyfulness, for excitement. Let the festivities begin.
Congratulations. You're no longer students. In a few moments, you will be members of the Reed College Alumni Association. There are several differences that you will notice, some good, some not so good. Instead of Reed demanding the price of a new car each semester for 8 semesters in a row without giving you a dime in trade on the car you purchased last semester, you'll get one call a year from a work-study student asking, "Would you like to contribute to the annual fund?" And she'll be happy if you send 20 bucks back. That's good. Apart from those years when you may have to deal with divorce, disease, or death, most of you will look back on your time at Reed as 4 of the hardest years of your life. Almost everything you do from now on will be easier. That's good. As a student at an elite institution like Reed, you are a high-status individual. As a graduate, you're just a kid without a job, which is pretty low status. Not so good, but if we were that interested in status, we would have gone to Nameplate U instead of Reed, right? So take heart. You have to be smart to get in here. You have to work very hard to get out of here with a diploma. So if you have the quality that employers prize the most, the ability to get along with others, you'll do fine. Eventually, like liberal arts graduates from Reed, you'll end up with one of the best jobs in America. Trust me. The Alumni Association welcomes you as a member and invites you to your 0-year reunion 3 weekends from now right here at Reed. We call it a reunion, but it's really a weekend-long party. You can't believe how great this place is with the sun shining on you, like today, a glass of Pinot Noir in your hands, surrounded by friends, with absolutely no schoolwork to do. We also have alumni chapters in Portland and 7 other cities nationwide that sponsor activities throughout the year. You're welcome to join your local alumni chapter. No dues are required. Most are having a new graduates pizza party, which you're invited to, May 22nd here in Portland, or June 12th in most of the rest of the cities. We'll buy the pizza, you got to buy your own drinks. It took a lot of people to get you here, so I would suggest you take some time to thank 1 or 2 of them once you've calmed down from graduation here. Gratitude is in such short supply these days that you'll make a friend for life. I hope that you all find something that you love to do, because if you do, your days will be golden. Surround yourself with people who have your best interests at heart and whose influence you value. Give back to your community. We really are an elite. Only 25% of Americans have a college degree, and only 2% of those graduate from institutions like Reed. The college has volunteer opportunities if you're interested: admission, career services. The Alumni Association and Development all use volunteers. Did you know that Andy Warhol, the richest and most famous artist in the world when he died 20 years ago, volunteered each week in a soup kitchen? If it was good enough for him, it's good enough for us. That's it for me. Congratulations again. It's your big day. Go out and do something amazing and make us even more proud. But most importantly, keep in touch.
Summer's cool shade, how delightful to sit. In winter, how social, when few friends are met. In autumn, ripe fruits, all palates regale. In spring, we delight in the blossom's sweet vale. In summer's cool shade, how delightful to sit. In winter, how social, when few friends are met. In autumn, ripe fruits, our palates regale. In spring, we delight in the blossom's sweet vale. In spring, we delight in the blossom's sweet vale. In spring, we delight in the blossom's sweet vale. Each season has pleasure and blessing in store. Be content and be happy and wish for no more. For know the best season to laugh and to sing is summer, is winter, is autumn, is spring. 'Tis summer, 'tis winter, 'tis autumn, 'tis spring. 'Tis summer, 'tis winter, 'tis autumn, 'tis spring. For know the best season to laugh and to sing is summer, is winter, is autumn, is spring. To laugh, to laugh, tis summer, tis winter, tis autumn, tis spring. For know the best season to laugh and to sing is summer, is winter, is autumn, is spring. Is summer, is winter, is autumn, is spring. Tis summer, tis winter, tis autumn, tis spring. Tis summer, tis winter, tis autumn, tis spring. Tis summer, winter, autumn, spring.
in summer's cool shade. One thing we are very good at Reed College is wishful thinking. Well, welcome everyone. On this day after Mother's Day, I would especially like to welcome you long-suffering mothers out there. And also you fathers, and you brothers and sisters, grandparents, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews. Welcome all you dogs and assorted other animals. And most important, welcome to the indescribably wonderful class of 2006. And let me ask all of our assembled guests, including the indescribably wonderful class of 2006, to join me in expressing our thanks to the most talented and devoted teacher-scholars on the planet, the Reed College faculty. Well, this morning I have bad news and I have good news. The bad news is that a hacker broke into our computer system last night and completely destroyed your student records. The good news is that no one will ever find out that you flunked Intro Chem. Or that it took you four tries to pass your junior qual. Or that you satisfied your PE requirement by taking 2 semesters of stargazing. Stargazing in Portland? All right. The other good news is that you all get to start over again next fall as freshmen. Just kidding. We don't have room for you. But I do know how hard it is for most of you to leave here. After all, I'm a member of your class. Well, some of you. I started 4 years ago, just like many of you, but you're leaving and I'm not. I confess I never took Hume 110. In fact, I took one look at that reading list and I said to Wally Englert, "You've got to be kidding." If I read all that stuff, I wouldn't have time to sleep. I wouldn't have time to take a shower. As we all know. So anyway, I don't graduate. I get to stay and work on my Herodotus, and you get to go out into the world and actually use your Herodotus. Now, it may have occurred to some of you at least, to wonder what exactly does one do with Herodotus. I'm sure your parents have wondered. But fear not, Herodotus is actually making a comeback. Just yesterday, in fact, I saw a job ad in the newspaper that read, "Director of Central Intelligence Agency, knowledge of Herodotus required." No other experience necessary. Well, this is not actually fanciful. It would be a good thing if the CIA director knew Herodotus. And for that matter, Aristotle and Kant, Newton and Einstein, Bach and Brunelleschi, Confucius and the Dalai Lama, Derrida. No, forget about it, not Derrida. This is a world, after all, that does demand new ways of thinking, new ways of knowing. Our job at Reed College has been to prepare you for that world. And now your job is to step into that world and bring to it new ways of thinking and new ways of knowing. Your job is not just to apply the existing algorithms, but to invent new algorithms. Your job is not just to interpret your own sacred texts, but to help us understand how others interpret their sacred texts. Your job is to teach others, as many of you have taught me, that environmental sustainability is not a luxury but is in fact survival. Your job is not to perfect the instruments of competition and conflict, but to perfect the instruments of understanding and caring. And your job is not to erect barriers around your culture, but to destroy barriers between cultures. Few people have fulfilled that role more effectively than our commencement speaker, Tamim Ansari, Reed College class of 1970. As he chronicles in his brilliant and moving memoir, West of Kabul, East of New York, Tamim Ansari has spent his life straddling the fault line between two worlds. In his studies at Reed, and particularly in the novel he wrote for his senior thesis, Tamim nurtured a passion for the written word. As a novelist, essayist, commentator, lecturer, and columnist, he developed a lifelong devotion to using words as vehicles for self-discovery and as vehicles for healing. Ironically, given the vast number of words that he has published, his most famous words were contained in a humble message that he emailed to a few friends after the September 11th terrorist attacks. Those humble words quickly circulated the planet and became a totemic cry for rationality and understanding in a world on the verge of going mad. If in fact our world did stop short of going mad, we can thank people like Tamim Ansari. So please join me in welcoming a son of Reed College, a citizen of the world, Tamim Ansari.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Reed students. Thank you, Reed community. Especially thank you, Reed graduating class, for inviting me to be part of this important moment with you. As you probably know, 36 years ago, I graduated from Reed College myself. And incidentally, there's no college or university in the country that I would rather be a graduate of. And I wish I could tell you what was going on in my mind 36 years ago when I sat where you're sitting now, waiting for my name to be called. But I can't do it because I didn't attend commencement myself. This is my first Reed commencement. And it wasn't that I thought the moment lacked significance, but in keeping with my times, because this was 1970, which was the peak year of the 1960s. And the ethos then was all ritual is empty ritual. And I believed at that point that authenticity belonged only to the unique gesture that you could wrest personally out of history. And so, even though I knew that graduation from Reed was crossing a crucial threshold from something to something, I didn't know from what to where. But whatever it signified, I thought the meaning of this moment was so personal it couldn't be subsumed into any public ritual. And for me in 1970, graduating from Reed meant things like, first of all, I was going to break up or part ways with my college girlfriend. It meant that the day after graduation, I was going to be eligible for the draft to be sent to Vietnam. And it meant for me that the day after graduation, I wouldn't have the excuse that I'm in school anymore, so I would have to deal in a fresh way with the artillery of weekly letters I was getting from my father pleading with me to come back to Afghanistan. And the one thing I knew was that I wasn't going back to Afghanistan because I had my personal destiny here and I was going to pursue it as, I didn't know what, but something. And it was important to me at that point, I was committed to not defining what my destiny was. Because one thing I believed in 1970 was that civilization as we knew it had perhaps 10 years to go max, more probably 5 or 6. And I was not alone in that conviction. I think some notion like that animated the counterculture. And so after I graduated from Reed College, I spent another 6 tumultuous years in Portland as part of the counterculture. And I was part of a group of people, or a loosely flung tribal network of people, and we were ardently immersed in the enterprise of building a pure new civilization that we thought would inherit the earth as soon as the old one crumbled. And so we were, building or planting community gardens. We had farms. We had cooperatively run food stores and radio stations and this and that. And I was, thank you. And we thought of ourselves as building a world, and I'm going to say these words without irony. I really thought, we were going to build a world of peace and love and justice and harmony, and that's what we were involved in. And I worked on a collectively owned and operated newspaper here in Portland called the Portland Scribe, and the days were filled with meaning. But the years passed, and the juggernaut of industrial modernity hurled on, and it came to dawn on us one by one that the worst might happen. Civilization might not end. And what crumbled, in fact, was our counterculture community, and it was we who scattered to the winds to become sales executives and lawyers and math professors and carpenters' wives. And I drifted down to San Francisco, the Reed College of Cities. I drifted down to San Francisco and I became a writer. And over the years that followed, along with textbooks and newspaper articles and eventually children's stories and a lot of other things, late at night in my basement, huddled over the keyboard, I wrote this passionate novel about the Portland years called Sinking the Ark. And writing that book was entirely about making sense of what had happened to me and my generation in our 20s, the period of time that you guys are just entering now. And then I put the book on the shelf. And many years later, I came back to Portland. It was a visit, and I wanted to see how the real thing compared to my fictional reconstruction of it. But of course, the Scribe had gone under long ago, and the very building in which we put that newspaper together had been razed, and it was a parking lot now. And the communal house that I was sharing in the 70s with a shifting population of visionary others had been subdivided into high-end lawyers' offices. And Ken's Afterglow, which was a place we went and drinking and dancing on Thursday nights after we put the paper to bed, was now a biker hangout, and it smelled like the morning after. So it turned out that the real thing was not in any place or object. It must exist only in the collective memory of we who had been through that era and through that experience. And some of that we was still in Portland. So I hunted up old friends, and we sat on various of these big wraparound wooden porches that you have in the city and that I think are so great. And we drank beer and we reminisced about the old days. But it turned out that although we all had vivid and specific memories of that time, they weren't the same memories, even if they concerned the same events. And there was no neutral point from which to reconcile the contradictions. And so if the real thing wasn't in any person or place or in any memory, then where was it? And that's when it occurred to me, that my novel, for me, this novel I'd written about Portland was as real as it gets. And I say all this to make a point, and the point that I want to make is that I find that the most powerful tool for finding meaning in the random rush and tumble of events is the metaphor of story. And I think we're genetically coded with this. This is part of our genetic inheritance. It's the reason why we tell stories, and we always have. I'm sure that in the cave when we were huddled around the fire and language first emerged, we were using it right off to tell stories. Some of them were caught a fish this big today. The first stories were memoirs, and among them were a few Jim Frays, I'm sure. But also, right from the start, I'm sure people were experiencing something about these stories that made them go, oh, man, that sure is true. There's something true about that. And I find myself now that when I read a story or write one or critique one and, work with somebody to make their story work, that I'm struggling to understand not just how a fictional life, but a real life can work. And a story breaks through only when it unfolds toward a deeper meaning, and I think it's the same with a life. On a later return to Portland, I ran into a woman who had been my girlfriend during the Portland years. And we were married now, but not to each other. And we both had kids, but not one another's. And we crossed paths at a dinner party one day. That's for me, I think. No, sorry. We crossed paths at a dinner party one night, and she said to me, incidentally, I was cleaning out my attic the other day, and I found all the letters you ever wrote me, and I wonder if you want them, because I was just going to throw them out. And I shrugged and said, sure, whatever, because, we'd lived in the same house, or we lived down the street from each other, so what letters? But I followed her out to her car, and she gave me this quite thick bundle of documents that proved that somebody bearing my name actually existed in 1973 and 4 and 5. And I opened them, and I recognized the voice, even if I'd forgotten the letters. This was me. And the last of these letters had come to Taya from San Francisco. And in that letter, I said to her that, I've given up all my ambitions. I can see now that I'm not going to save the world. I can see that I'm not a knight of the round table. And there is no round table, and there is no Camelot. And all I want now, and I listed my pitifully shrunken and trivial goals, the things that I then aspired to. And I remember 4 of them, and they were these: to love someone truly and be loved in return, to have a home and to feel at home somewhere in the world, to do some needed and meaningful work and receive a decent income for it, to have and deserve the respect of my society. And I could tell that those words were written in sorrow and despair. This was a voice announcing the end of a dream. And I saw what I thought my life story was at that moment, and it was exactly what I tried to express in that novel I wrote, Sinking the Ark. I thought my story was about reaching for big things and falling short. I thought what my life revealed was the futility of high ideals. But the strange thing is, looking at that letter and looking at those goals, I was stunned, because everything I said I had wanted 25 years earlier, or however many it was, I now had. But the more important thing was that these goals didn't strike me as trivial at all anymore. They seemed huge. They seemed huge. To have a home and to feel at home somewhere in the world. We live in the age of refugees. This is not nothing. And suddenly, I saw my whole past life my life up to that point in a new light. And it wasn't that the old story was falsified, it was subsumed into this larger tale. And at that point, I felt like, hey, my story is over. You can roll the credits. Everything after this will be the cast of characters going up on the screen, and me in the background sitting on a rocking chair, dispensing wisdom and starting every third sentence with, when I was your age. But that was, I think, the summer of 2000, or it was the summer of 2001. And everybody knows that in September of 2001, the terrorists destroyed the World Trade Center. The United States intervened in Afghanistan, overthrew the Taliban. And suddenly it turned out that my life story was far from over, and that it was not and had never been what I thought it was. On graduation day 1970, I thought I had left Afghanistan behind forever and that it had left me behind. And it turned out I was wrong, and we had never left each other. And it wasn't, again, that my previous story was falsified or discredited. It was subsumed into a larger narrative. And I found myself, strangely enough, inconceivably enough, dragged out of my privacy to be the spokesperson for the voiceless Afghan people. You know, a culture that is my culture and that I'd spent my whole life up to that point in argument with. Now suddenly, it's my duty to speak for that. And what this brought home to me is that no life unfolds in isolation. No life story unfolds in isolation. It's not just that every life is interwoven with so many others, but also that all of our lives, all of these interwoven and braided lives are part of nesting ever greater stories and ultimately the history of our times. And as we're trying to puzzle out the shape of our own narrative arc and making choices to affect that, we're also puzzling out the shape of that larger narrative, and we're contributing to it willy-nilly, whether we want to or not, in large ways or small, by action or inaction. Now, you know, growing up in Afghanistan, we thought we knew the shape of our narrative history. You know, our schools and our teachers told us, oh, the biggest event, the defining event of Afghan history was the British invasion and the War of Independence that made us a country. We didn't know that the defining event of Afghan history didn't lie in our past. It was like very looming, really near in our future, so near that its shadow must have lain across us already, and none of us knew about it. None of us could feel the cold breath of all that until the curtain broke and the Soviets came pouring through and the firing squads began their work and the intelligentsia fled and the countryside got littered with landmines and the jihadists rose out of the villages. So I'm going to say that we never know what's, you know, in the immediate future. But there are some truisms about time that we have in this culture. And you know what they are. The past, don't live in that. The future, it's healthy to live in the future. The greatest wisdom, be here now, live in the present. All right, you're clapping. Okay, here's what I'm going to say. You can't live in the past anyway, because the past is not your memories of it any more than the landscape is the map. So forget that. The future is that place where we never are. And the present, stripped of past and future, is a bubble that vanishes to nothing. So where can you live if not in the past, present, or future? And I'm saying you live in the story of your life. Because in the story of your life, every moment contains where you're coming from and where you're going to. And you know, chapter 24 could have lots of allure and it could have beautiful sentences, but it doesn't have any meaning without chapters 1 to 23 or whatever. And I'm saying that what lifts any story to greatness is not the particular events of the plot, but how those events unfold towards meaning. Yours could be an airport novel, full of glitter and cliffhangers, quickly read, easily forgotten. It could be deep, lyrical, an evocation of the power of love, maybe. Or it could be some epic testament to the capacity of the human spirit to rise above suffering. Or it could be some rollicking picaresque, who knows. But the story's never over until it's over. You keep reaching new levels of understanding and redefining what your story is. And that keeps happening so long as you're alive and kicking. It's only the moment of death that releases you from the present moment to become your whole life. But at every other moment, you're contributing to what that whole life will have been. And I'm out of time, and I've got a very dry mouth now, so I'm going to just leave you with this anecdote. When I was writing west of Kabul, east of New York, I called one of my cousins in Washington, D.C. She said, you're writing a book, what is it? I said, it's a memoir. She said, what's a memoir? I said, well, it's the story of my life. And she said, the story of your life? The story of your life? You were born in Afghanistan, you came here, you married Debbie, you got a house, you wrote some books. That's the story of your life. And you know, she was right. Those are the facts. So the only advice I'm going to leave you with is don't let somebody else write the story of your life. Thank you. And go get them, Reed College graduates.
Thank you, Tamim. Now that you have finally come to commencement, I think we'll give you your diploma. I'm now pleased to confer honorary degrees on two extraordinary persons. John D. Gray. Stand right here. I'll talk about you. Gifted entrepreneur, visionary builder, devoted civic leader, enlightened philanthropist, John Gray, you embody the adventuresome ideals of this your native state and this your adopted college. After serving your nation with distinction in World War II and earning an MBA from Harvard, you returned home to join a fledgling Portland chainsaw manufacturer where your first chair was a nail keg. In 5 years, you owned the company, and a decade later, your company had revolutionized the industry. Turning your hand to real estate development, you established a new standard for environmentally sensitive design in scenic areas such as the Oregon coast, high desert, Columbia Gorge, and Willamette River. In partnership with your beloved wife, Betty, you became a passionate advocate for and protector of Reed College. You joined the Board of Trustees in 1961, later chairing the board for 15 years until 1982, when you led Reed's first fundraising campaign. This spring, you conclude 45 years as a trustee, a stewardship that has carried Reed from a time of instability to a period of unprecedented success. The Gray Fund is but one prominent example of your extraordinary generosity to Reed, inspiring the college to name our campus center for you and Betty in 1998. Today, as a gesture of our appreciation and admiration, we extend to you Reed's highest honor. Upon the commendation of the faculty of Reed College and by the virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I confer upon John D. Gray the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters with all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining. The next degree will be conferred, unfortunately, in absentia. Richard P. Wallenberg, skilled engineer, adroit manager, involved citizen, versatile musician, Dick Wallenberg, you exemplify the qualities on which this college was built: discipline, intellect, stewardship, and humanity. Pioneering and engineering were in your blood. Born in Alaska, where the hydroelectric project your father designed still powers much of Juneau, you moved to Washington State when he co-founded the Longview Fiber Company. You studied engineering at Berkeley and business at Harvard, then rose to lieutenant colonel in World War II before returning to earn your stripes at Longview. As its president, you ushered in a long period of unprecedented expansion, innovation, and prosperity. Business acumen is but one facet of a life ennobled as well by devotion to family, support of education, and love of music. Reed College has been a proud beneficiary of those qualities. You recognize this college as an important resource on the intellectual landscape of your cherished Pacific Northwest and devoted more than 40 years to sustaining and strengthening Reed, including a crucial decade as chairman of its Board of Trustees. Today, we are honored to recognize your truly historic service to the college. Upon the recommendation of the faculty of Reed College, and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I confer upon Richard P. Wallenberg the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters with all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining. Accepting this degree on behalf of his father is Richard H. Wallenberg.
Will the candidates of the Division of the Arts please rise?
Mr. President, I present for the degree Bachelor of Arts the candidates both present and in absentia of the Division of the Arts.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty of Reed College and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I hereby confer upon the students of this division the degree of Bachelor of Arts with all the rights and privileges thereto appertaining.
Vera Claire Alcorn. Michelle Christiana David. Ross McGuire Donaldson. Megan Philippa Driscoll. Allison Nicole Ferlotti. Devon Wade Granmo. Lotus Leora Grenier. Elise Rowan Haig. Mont Christopher Hubbard. Mickey Murch. Leela Ann Outcult. Michael Christian Pape. Ava Judith Pelzer. Mary Lorraine Purnell. Elizabeth Diane Raby. Laura Eileen Weiser. Sarah L. Wright. Will the graduates please be seated? Will the candidates of the Division of History and Social Sciences please rise?
Mr. President, I present for the degree of Bachelor of Arts the candidates, both present and in absentia, of the Division of History and Social Sciences.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty of Reed College and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I hereby confer upon the students of this division the degree of Bachelor of Arts with all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining.
William Reed Allmendinger. Stephanie Kristen Burrell. Scott Thomas Butel. Graham Douglas Blair. Derek McDowell Bradley. Alexandra K. Bradspies. Andrea Victoria Brambilla. Celeste Madi Broderick. Jamaica Ayatsuko Brown. Brian Robert Burrell. Sarah Catherine Carlin. Parker Michelle Cooper. Nicholas Novikov Creamer. Kristen Michelle Cross. Israel Cruz. Brian Dennis Early. Elizabeth Nicole Ebright. Leah Edith Dundees Faw. Kian Ives Fleming. Scott Edward Foreman Murray. Rebecca Erin Fury. Eva Galanis Rosenbaum. Adam Michael Goldstein. Emily Hayward Allen. Alexandra Ellen Hoffman. Jeffrey Fitzgibbon Hughes. Lindsay Radcliffe James. Catherine Cody Jones. Antonia Marie Kaiton. Amanda Marina Keppeler. Lauren Elizabeth Lanahan. William Hayes Levin. Brenna Colleen McDonald. Elena Claire McGrath. Anna Elizabeth Melikar. William Clark Melton. Peter Angus Merrill Miller. Joshua David Newton. Charles Allen Pearson III. Joshua Charles Rotz. Christopher Jonathan Rempel. Raymond Parker Rendelman. Thea Naja Riofrancos. Emma Lillian Rowe. Shane William Rubenfeld. Cleo Reese Sadie. Todd Benjamin Schiefling. Jennifer H. Seminator. Boyana Skarich. Stuart Waring Stone. Sarah Wolf Sugarman. Taylor Bethany Sutton. Dawn Langan Teal. Peter Benjamin Twig. Andreina Antonieta Velasco. Thomas Gordon Weaver. Eleanor Curtis Williams. Justin Aaron Wilson. Robin Valley Woods. Will the graduates please be seated? Will the candidates of the Division of Literature and Languages please rise?
Mr. President, I present for the degree Bachelor of Arts the candidates both present in and in absentia of the Division of Literature and Languages.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty of Reed College and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I hereby confer upon the students of this division the degree of Bachelor of Arts with all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining.
Aliyah Janine Ogugwa Adigweme. Thomas Pittman Allen IV. Alice Rebecca Beckett. Sophie Elizabeth Bennett. Benjamin Aaron Boyce. Hillary Elizabeth Brevig. Melinda Christine Brown. Catherine Elizabeth Bruins. Om Indra Buffalo. Rachel Danielle Carlson. Jillian L. Christian. Lucas Donahue. Josie Rose Duncan. Ben Levine Dupree. Molly Copley Eisenberg. Rebecca B. Embler. Jonathan R. Eskew. James Aaron Flippin. Claire Rudy Foster. Rebecca Gatos. Jonathan Shadrach Gilbert. Hannah Teresa Gildia. Lindsay Rose Helms. Anna Elizabeth Henke. Adrienne May Huff. Justin Heller Humphreys. Benjamin Reed Hutchinson. Matthew John Kielt. Rebecca Lynn Cluth. Caillou Lamb. Laura Dawn Larcell. Alexander B. Leibowitz. Michael Benjamin Lubing. Crockett Kaiser Marr. Hannah Catherine Mathewson. Dana Catherine Mead. Tyler Lane Murphy. Dana Marie Offenbacher. Elizabeth Katie Olney. Benjamin Kaplan Olson. Rachel Oriana Perry. Rachel Kathleen Preminger. Daniel Jeffrey Rankin. Ariana Lowell Reeve Rossi. Mara Julia Reynolds. Paige Jacqueline Richmond. Melinda Irene Ross. Catherine R. Rutledge Jaffe. Aaron M. Sharp. Molly Eleanor Shaver. Adele Maxine Shea. Ariana Rose Sloat. Tracy Adrian Steindel. Lurleen Lauren Sweet. Anita Rebecca Tellez. Edwin Way Thanhauser, Jr. Monica Tomsinski. Evan A. J. Trimble. Adelaide L. Wainwright. Chelsadney B. Wilding. Nicholas Edward Yurchenko. Will the graduates please be seated? Will the candidates of the Division of Mathematics and Natural Sciences please rise?
Mr. President, I present for the degree Bachelor of Arts the candidates, both present and in absentia, from the Division of Mathematics and Natural Sciences.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty of Reed College and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I hereby confer upon the students of this division the degree of Bachelor of Arts with all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining.
Nicole Carol Maylin Adelstein. Jillian H. Anderson. Andre Milton Bach. Paul Thomas Baker. Susan Michelle Beaver. Nicholas Blanchard Wright. Edna Bonhomme. Christopher Thomas Boniface. Kimberly Ann Camacho. Ana Maria Carmona Galindo. Candy Chen. Dorothea Hope Kofer. Kevin Thomas Connolly. Leah Parsons Cook. Leslie Beth Cooperman. Dorian Sky Corey. Matthew Lee Davidson. David Peter Direct. Jordan J. Devereaux. Mark Allen DeWitt. William Ernest Draper. Forrest Elliott Farron. Oren Menachem Elrad. Jessica Julianne Foster. Fontia Shea Fowler. Jason Douglas Givens Doyle. Aaron Eliezer Golden. Jessica Marie Griffith. Jessica Lauren Hacker. David Stewart Ham. Elizabeth Ann Hopkins. Brian Gareth Howell. Jennifer Lillian Hubbs. Victoria Catherine Jenkins. Helena Joshi. David Samuel Katz. Joseph Ian Kliegman. Benjamin James Kukel. Beverly Amy Lau. Leslie Ann Lilly. John Alexander Lind. Kelly Marie Lynn. Colin Stephen McGowan. Brian Christopher Moore. Colin William Morrow. Mark William Nolan. Diana Christine Parrish. Timothy John Pennycook. Alexander Velitsarov Petrov. Darren Joseph Platt. Max Henry Quinn. Rebecca Elaine Riley. Leela Elizabeth Reeder. Julia May Robinson. Seth Francis Samuel. Rachel Hart. Rachel Hart Voloshin Sandy. Roger Benezet Scott. Jason Robert Seifter. Conrad Arne Schultz. Lindsay Catherine Swanson. Jeremy Gregory Wayne. Evan Thomas Ward. Susanna Holly Wegner. David Williams. Jessica Lynn Youngberg. Will the graduates please be seated? Will the candidates of the Division of Philosophy, Religion, and Psychology please rise?
Mr. President, I present for the degree of Bachelor of Arts the candidates both present in absentia of the Division of Philosophy, Religion, and Psychology.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty of Reed College and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I hereby confer upon the students of this division the degree of Bachelor of Arts with all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining.
Elizabeth Geneva Blodgett. Evan Maxwell Brewer. Eliza Marie Burer. Michael Phillips Casper. Daniel Chevalier. Amanda Lee Cooper. Tristram Coffin Damon. Michael Clark Dean. Kara Ariel Fisher. Joseph Preston Franklin. David Trexler Gatta. Sarah Spotswood Gish. Anna Marion Gordon. Miriam Sarah Grotti. Simon Kurt Hilarides. Lauren Elaine Hudgens. Aaron Russell Jacob Smith. Samuel Benjamin Kiger. Margot Pine Niffen. Violet Lothar Lakeland. Catherine Eleanor Liggett. Samantha Rose Lundiquam. Megan Sarah McClintock Gilbert. Miranda Noel Meadow. Benjamin Paul Murphy. Shori Allison Myers. Matthew Liam O'Sullivan. Rianne Teresa O'Sullivan. Jeffrey Wyatt Peterson. Jacob Benjamin Rothstein. Bonnie Elizabeth Saylor. Michael Jared Salk. Roberta Alexandra Schreiber. Ethan Oliver Selfridge. Kendra L. Spiker Eisenstark. Penelope Rose Stanton. Maureen Tara Steckler. Sarah Alice Stickney. Mary Elizabeth Ungerecht. Rosa Michelle Montana Walker. Will the graduates please be seated? Will the candidates who have completed interdisciplinary majors please rise?
Mr. President, I present for the degree Bachelor of Arts the candidates, both present and in absentia, who have completed interdisciplinary majors.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty of Reed College and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I hereby confer upon the students of this division the degree of Bachelor of Arts with all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining.
Daniel Christopher Giddich. Jesse Gautier Hallett. Eliah James Hecht. Leah Garrett Johnston. Aaron Thrall Chaffetz. Paul Mark Robertson. Miriam Nahama Rosenberg. Catherine Withy Sweeney. Alexandra Christine Urza. Alexander Mark Wallace. Jeffrey Andrew Wormer. Will the graduates please be seated? Will the candidates for the degree of Master of Arts in Liberal Studies please rise?
Mr. President, I present for the degree of Master of Arts in Liberal Studies the candidates both present and in absentia.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty of Reed College and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I hereby confer upon these candidates the degree, as Ed Siegel would describe it, Master of Arts, with all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining.
Susan Teresa Benson Zoreff. Nita L. Countryman. Janet Ellen Marthers. Paul Marthers. Linda Jean Meng. Ruthie, oops. Ruthie Maka Petty. Paul Andrew Platosh. Laura Lee Ross. Will the graduates please be seated? I now invite your applause for the class of 2006.